Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Today we have an incredible story to share with you. We are going to tell the extraordinary experience of Zeferino Espinoza, a man who, after a near-death experience, began channeling messages from angels and had apocalyptic visions about the future of humanity. Get ready for an exciting and revealing journey. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our impactful stories. Now let's dive into this incredible life experience. Hello, my name is Zeferino Espinoza. I'm an ordinary man, or at least I was until a few years ago. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, a vibrant and lively city. I have always been a calm person. I led a normal life like many of you. I worked in an office in the city center, spent hours in traffic every day, and on weekends I enjoyed spending time with my family and friends. Since I was young, I've always had an interest in the spiritual, It wasn't anything very deep, but I liked to meditate from time to time, read about Eastern philosophies, that sort of thing. It was more of a hobby, a way to relax after a stressful day at work. I never imagined that this practice would change my life in such a drastic way. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a night like any other. I had arrived home after a particularly tiring day at the office. The traffic was terrible. I had a stressful meeting with clients, that kind of day, right? All I wanted was some peace and quiet. So, as usual, I decided to meditate before bed. I sat on the floor of my room, crossed my legs, closed my eyes, and began to breathe deeply. At first, it was as always. My mind wandered, thinking about the day that passed, the tasks for the next day. Little by little, I calmed down, entering that state of tranquility that meditation provides. But that night, something was different. I can't explain exactly what it was, but there was an energy in the air, a feeling that something important was about to happen. I ignored this feeling and continued my meditation. That's when it all started. Suddenly, I felt intense pressure on my head and shoulders. It was as if an invisible force was pulling me down, sinking me into the ground. The sensation was so real that for a moment I thought my bedroom floor had turned into quicksand. I tried to open my eyes, but I couldn't. My body felt too heavy to move. The pressure increased every second and my breathing became difficult. It was as if I was being dragged to the bottom of the ocean, the water pressing down on my body from all sides. At that moment I felt scared, a deep, visceral fear that I had never experienced before. I thought I was dying, that would be my last night on earth. But something inside me, an inner voice I didn't know existed, told me not to fight, to surrender to the experience. And that's what I did. I let myself be carried away by that mysterious force without knowing where it would take me. Little did I know that that night would be just the beginning of an incredible journey that would completely change my view of the world and myself. That night was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, every time I meditated, the same feeling of intense pressure returned. It was as if something was trying to pull me out of my own body. At first, it was scary. I fought this feeling, tried to hold on to physical reality. But little by little, I began to get used to and even look forward to these experiences. I remember one night in particular, about 3 months after the first episode. I was meditating as usual when the pressure started. This time I decided not to resist. I let myself sink into that feeling. Suddenly I felt like I was floating. I opened my eyes and saw myself hovering above my own body. It was an indescribable sensation, a mixture of fear and fascination. I looked down and saw my body sitting on the floor, motionless as a statue. It was me. But at the same time, it wasn't. I tried to touch my physical body, but my hand passed through it as if it were made of air. At that moment, I realized I was experiencing something that went beyond my normal understanding of the world. The feeling of being out of body only lasted a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. When I came back, I was out of breath and confused. Part of me wanted to believe it had just been a vivid dream, but deep down I knew it was something more. Over the following weeks, these experiences became more frequent and intense. Sometimes I would see bright lights around me during meditation. Other times, I heard sounds that didn't seem to come from anywhere, like distant bells or a soft hum. One night, about 5 months after the first episode, I had the most intense experience yet. The pressure started as always, but this time, it was even stronger. I felt like I was being sucked into a dark tunnel. The sensation of movement was so real that my stomach felt sick. At the end of the tunnel, I saw a light. It was the brightest, most beautiful light I had ever seen. It wasn't blinding or painful to look at, but incredibly welcoming and comforting. I felt drawn to her, as if she were calling me. As I got closer to the light, I started to hear voices. They were not normal voices, they were like music, harmonious and serene. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but somehow I knew they were important messages. Just as I was about to reach the light, I felt a sudden pull. It was like a giant rubber band was pulling me back. In an instant, I was back in my body, panting and covered in sweat. These experiences continued for another month. Each time I went a little further, stayed a little longer. I began to look forward to these moments, hoping to discover more about this mysterious world that was opening up to me. I knew I was on the brink of something great, something that would change my life forever. But nothing could prepare me for what happened the night I completed 6 months of these extraordinary experiences. It was a cold winter night in Los Angeles, unusual for the city. I prepared for my evening meditation with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Over the past few days, I had felt that something important was about to happen. It was as if the entire universe was holding its breath, waiting for this moment. I sat on the floor of my room as I always did. The silence of the night was broken only by the soft hum of the heater. I closed my eyes and started breathing deeply. Almost immediately, I felt the familiar pressure begin to build. This time, however, it was different. The pressure was more intense than ever, almost unbearable. I felt like my head was going to explode. My entire body was shaking, and I could feel beads of sweat running down my face. Part of me wanted to stop, open my eyes, and return to the safety of the physical world. But something inside me told me to keep going, to hold on a little longer. Suddenly, I felt something open on the top of my head. It was as if a door I didn't even know existed had been thrown open. An intense light, brighter than 1,000 suns, flooded my vision, but it wasn't a blinding or painful light. It was warm, welcoming, like a hug of pure love. When I opened my eyes, the world around me had completely changed. My family room was gone. In their place, I found myself surrounded by beings of light. They were tall, radiant, with a beauty beyond any human description. Their bodies seemed to be made of pure energy, sparkling and pulsing with colors I didn't even know existed. These beings, which I can only describe as angels, smiled at me silently. Their smiles conveyed a peace and love that I had never experienced before. I wanted to talk, ask who they were, what they wanted from me. But the words stuck in my throat. It was as if human language was inadequate for this moment. One of the angels approached me. He, or she, for angels seem to be beyond gender, reached out and gently touched the top of my head, right where I had felt the opening. At the moment of touch, I felt a wave of energy run through my entire body. It was as if every cell of my being was being filled with pure light. In that instant, I understood. The crown that had opened was not physical, but spiritual. It was what some traditions call the crown chakra, the point of connection between our physical being and the spiritual realm. And now, that connection had been fully activated in me. The angels remained silent, but I could feel that they were transmitting something to me. They were not words or thoughts, but a deep, intuitive knowledge. They were showing me that I had a purpose, a mission, that I would be a bridge between our world and theirs. I don't know how long I stayed in that state. It could have been minutes or hours. Time seemed to have no meaning in that place. When I finally came to, I was lying on the floor of my room, the morning sun streaming in through the window. But I knew nothing would be the same from then on. The revelation of the crown had opened up not just my consciousness, but a whole new world of possibilities. After that extraordinary night, my life entered a new phase. I knew I had experienced something profound and transformative, but I had no idea how to proceed. Angels had appeared to me, but what did that mean? What should I do with this experience? In the days that followed, I desperately tried to communicate with the angels again. Each night, I sat down to meditate, anxiously waiting for them to reappear. Sometimes I felt his presence, a faint vibration in the air, a comforting warmth enveloping my body. But they remained invisible and silent. I tried to speak out loud as if I were talking to some invisible friends. "Please tell me something," I said. "Show me what to do." But there was no answer. I tried to think of messages, imagining that maybe they could read my mind. Anything. I even tried gestures, waving my hands in the air as if I was signaling to someone far away. All in vain. I confess that at times frustration took over me. There were moments when I wondered if I had imagined it all, if this incredible experience had been nothing more than a particularly vivid dream. But then I remembered the feeling of light filling my being, the gentle touch of the angel on my head, and I knew it had been real. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I continued to meditate regularly, keeping my mind and heart open. Despite the lack of direct communication, I felt like I was changing. My perception of the world around me has become more acute. I began to notice details that had previously gone unnoticed. The dance of light on tree leaves, the intricate pattern of clouds in the sky, the music hidden in the sound of the wind. About 6 months after the angels first appeared, something changed. It was an ordinary night. I was sitting in my usual meditation position. My mind was restless that day, full of doubts and worries. "Why did you appear to me?" I thought. "What do you want me to do?" Suddenly, as an answer to my inner questions, a word appeared in my mind. It wasn't like a normal thought. It was as if it had been written in letters of light directly into my consciousness. Peace. I was astonished. After months of silence, finally communication. It was a single word, but loaded with meaning. I felt a wave of calm wash over me, as if that simple word had the power to dispel all my worries. From that moment on, messages began to flow. They were always simple words at first. Love, hope, gratitude. Each word was charged with its own energy, as if it were more than just a concept, but a living experience. Over time, the words turned into short sentences. "Trust the process," one message read. "Love is the answer," said another. Each communication was like a puzzle, making me reflect deeply on its meaning. I realized that the angels were teaching me a new way of communicating. It was not through long speeches or detailed explanations, but through pure concepts, ideas distilled to their most fundamental essence. Every word or phrase was a portal to deeper understanding, if I was willing to explore it. This form of interaction with angels continued to evolve over the following months, opening new horizons of understanding and preparing me for the next step in my spiritual journey. As time passed, my connection with the angels grew stronger. Messages that were once just words or short phrases began to expand. It was as if a floodgate had been opened, allowing a constant stream of information to flow to me. One day, while meditating, something extraordinary happened. Instead of seeing words in my mind, I started hearing voices. They were not audible voices in the physical sense, but clear and distinct in my consciousness. At first I was scared. Was he going crazy? But I soon realized that these voices had the same calm, loving quality that I associated with angels. The voices spoke with a wisdom that went beyond anything I had ever experienced. They spoke about universal love, about the interconnectedness of all things, about the purpose of life and the nature of reality. It was as if all the knowledge in the universe was being poured into my mind. Little by little, I realized that I could ask questions in my head and receive answers. It was a silent dialogue, an exchange of ideas and concepts that transcended normal language. I began to understand that what I was experiencing was what many call channeling, the process of receiving and transmitting information from non-physical sources. One day, While I was in this state of communicating with the angels, I felt an urge to speak out loud. When I opened my mouth, the words that came out didn't feel like mine. My voice sounded different, deeper and more resonant. I realized that the angels were speaking through me. At first, this experience was intermittent and unpredictable. Sometimes I could only channel for a few minutes before the connection was lost. Other times, messages flowed for hours on end. I learned to surrender to the process, to trust the wisdom that was being transmitted through me. I decided these messages were too important to keep to myself. I felt I had a responsibility to share them with the world. So I started recording videos of my channeling sessions and posting them on YouTube. In the beginning, my channel had few viewers. After all, I was just another person on the internet talking about spirituality. But something about the messages I conveyed seemed to resonate with people. The comments started coming in, people saying how the angels' words had touched their lives, how they had found comfort and guidance in the messages. As my channel grew, I started receiving invitations to give talks and workshops. It was scary at first. I, who had always been a reserved person, suddenly found myself speaking in front of large audiences. But every time I got on stage and allowed the angels to speak through me, I felt incredible energy flowing. People in the audience seemed to be touched in profound, transformative ways. My life had completely transformed. From an ordinary office worker, I became a conduit for angelic wisdom. It was a huge, sometimes overwhelming responsibility. But every time I saw the positive impact these messages had on people's lives, I knew I was on the right path. Channeling has become not just a spiritual practice for me, but a way of life. I learned to keep my energy clean and my vibration high to be a clear channel for messages. This meant taking good care of my physical body, practicing meditation daily, and maintaining positive thoughts and emotions. As my channeling skill developed, the messages from the angels became more and more specific and detailed. They began to talk not only about abstract spiritual concepts, but also about future events and changes that were coming for humanity. This is how I began to receive predictions that would change not only my life, but potentially the course of human history. The messages I began to receive from the angels were increasingly specific and in some cases alarming. These were not just words of comfort or general spiritual guidance, but detailed predictions about future events that could affect all of humanity. One of the most impactful visions I received was of a large rift in the Indian Ocean. The angels showed me images of a massive geological event, something that would be heard around the world. I saw in my mind a huge crack opening at the bottom of the ocean, releasing a cloud of toxic gas that spread into the atmosphere. The consequences of this event would be devastating, especially for regions such as Syria, the Middle East, and Turkey. I saw people fleeing their homes, entire cities being evacuated. It was a frightening sight, but the angels insisted that I needed to share this information so that people could prepare. Another prediction I received concerned the United States. The angels showed me a period of great economic and political turbulence in the country. I saw images of street protests, clashes between citizens and security forces. Most alarming was the sight of some states attempting to secede from the Union, bringing the country to the brink of civil war. One of the most shocking messages was about the sudden death of a prominent world leader. I was not shown who this leader was or from which country, but I clearly saw the consequences of his death. A huge uprising, chaotic and ineffective elections, a widespread feeling of instability and fear. The angels also showed me visions of geopolitical conflicts. I saw China asserting its dominance over Taiwan, causing international tensions. At the same time, I saw Japan emerging as a unifying force, trying to rally the world against Chinese aggression. However, this union would be temporary, as the next vision showed China's central leadership disintegrating, leading to a reconfiguration of global power. Not all predictions were gloomy, however. One of the most intriguing and hopeful visions I received was about a cosmic event that would change human consciousness. The angels showed me an intense flash of sunlight that would bathe the earth, but it was not a destructive light. On the contrary, this light would raise the vibrational frequency of everyone on the planet. I saw people around the world awakening to a new reality. It was as if a veil had been lifted from her eyes. People were beginning to develop abilities that we once considered supernatural: telepathy, clairvoyance, the ability to heal with our hands. It was the awakening of a sixth sense on a global scale. This elevation of consciousness would bring with it a new era of unity and mutual understanding. I saw people from different cultures and religions coming together, recognizing their fundamental connection. Old conflicts were resolved as people realized the futility of war and violence. Sharing these visions with the world was not easy. I often wondered if I was doing the right thing. What if I was wrong? What if these visions were just a figment of my imagination? But every time I doubted, the angels reassured me. They reminded me that my role was not to judge or interpret messages, but simply to convey them. Little by little, I began to see signs that some of the predictions were coming true. Events in the world seemed to be lining up with what the angels had shown me. This gave me the confidence to keep sharing the messages even when they were difficult to hear. The predictions and messages I received from the angels were not just about future events. They also gave me guidance on how people could prepare for the changing times ahead. And these preparations went far beyond the physical. They were about raising our consciousness and vibration to navigate challenges with grace and compassion. Angel messages were not just limited to the near future. They also gave me long-term visions, showing me a panorama of humanity's destiny that stretched out over decades, perhaps even centuries. One of the most striking insights I received was about the evolution of our relationship with technology. I saw a future in which the line between the biological and the technological became increasingly blurred. Brain implants that increased our cognitive capabilities, bionic limbs that far surpassed our physical limitations, and even the possibility of uploading human consciousness to a digital medium. However, the angels showed me that this technological evolution would come with great ethical and philosophical challenges. I saw heated debates about what it means to be human, about the limits of genetic manipulation, about the rights of artificial intelligence. It was a fascinating future, but also frightening in many ways. Another long-term vision concerned our relationship with the environment. The angel showed me an early period of great devastation. Deserts advancing, coastal cities submerged, entire ecosystems collapsing. But then, I saw humanity finally waking up to the urgency of the situation. I saw the emergence of revolutionary environmental cleanup technologies, the restoration of forests on a global scale, the creation of floating and underground cities that coexisted harmoniously with nature. The angels also gave me visions about the expansion of humanity beyond Earth. I saw colonies on Mars, bases on the Moon, and even the first interstellar travel. But most surprising was the sight of our first contact with intelligent extraterrestrial life. The angels showed me that this encounter would fundamentally change our understanding of the universe and our place in it. In the field of spirituality and consciousness, the visions were equally fascinating. I saw a future where the divide between science and spirituality completely dissolved. Phenomena that we today consider paranormal would be studied and understood scientifically. Meditation and other spiritual practices would be as common and accepted as physical hygiene. One of the most profound insights I received was about the evolution of human consciousness itself. The angels showed me that we were on the threshold of a quantum leap in our spiritual evolution. I saw a future where telepathy was the norm, where we could access humanity's collective knowledge through a kind of internet of consciousness. I saw people capable of manipulating matter with thought, of traveling outside the body at will, of accessing other dimensions of reality. However, the angels emphasized that this future was not guaranteed. They showed me that we were at a bifurcation point in human history. One path led to this bright future of expansion and evolution. The other led to collapse and possible extinction. The message was clear. The future was in our hands. Every choice we made, individually and collectively, moved us toward one of these possible futures. The angels told me that their role, and mine, as their messenger, was to guide us towards the path of light, evolution, and the expansion of consciousness. These long-term visions were both inspiring and overwhelming. They gave me a much greater perspective on our journey as a species. I understood that the challenges we face today are just part of a much larger process of evolution and growth. Sharing these visions with the world has become a crucial part of my mission. I wanted people to understand that our actions today are shaping this long-term future, that each of us has a role to play in this great journey of humanity. With all these visions and predictions, the angels did not leave me without guidance. They provided a series of practical and spiritual recommendations to help people prepare for the changing times ahead. These preparations became a fundamental part of the messages I shared. One of the first recommendations was about water purification. The angels emphasized the importance of having access to clean, pure water. They showed me filtration and purification methods that went beyond conventional technologies. They talked about the importance of energizing the water, not only to physically clean it, but also to raise its energetic vibration. Another practical recommendation was about finances. The angels advised you to have a cash reserve. They predicted periods of economic instability in which electronic banking systems could fail. Having physical money could make a difference in critical moments. The issue of food security was also addressed. The angels recommended that people learn to grow their own food, even in small spaces. They spoke about the importance of stocking up on non-perishable foods, seeds, and essential supplies. But it wasn't just about accumulating resources. It was about developing self-reliance skills. One of the most emphatic recommendations was about building strong communities. The angels showed me that in the difficult times ahead, strength would be in the connections between people. They encouraged the formation of local networks of mutual support, the sharing of resources and knowledge, the creation of exchange systems that did not depend on money. In the spiritual aspect, the recommendations were equally important. The angels emphasized the need to raise our own energetic vibration. This meant cultivating positive thoughts and emotions, practicing gratitude daily, meditating regularly. They explained that the higher our vibration, the easier it would be to navigate the challenges ahead. The practice of forgiveness was another important recommendation. The angels showed me that carrying resentment and hurt not only lowered our vibration, but also made us more vulnerable in times of crisis. They provided powerful techniques for releasing old hurts and cultivating compassion. One of the most interesting recommendations was about developing intuition. The angel said that as changes accelerated, our ability to make quick and sound decisions would be crucial. They provided exercises to sharpen our intuition, to learn to trust our inner wisdom. The angels also spoke about the importance of taking care of the physical body. They recommended a diet based on whole and natural foods, regular exercise, and detoxification techniques. They explained that a healthy body would be more resistant not only to diseases, but also to the energetic changes that were to come. One recommendation that surprised many people was the importance of playing and having fun. The angels emphasized that, even in difficult times, it was crucial to maintain joy and lightness. They explained that laughter and fun raise our vibration in a powerful way. Finally, the angels spoke about the importance of maintaining hope and faith. They showed me that fear and despair would only amplify the challenges we would face. Hope, on the other hand, was a powerful force that could guide us through the darkest of times. Sharing these recommendations has become a crucial part of my work. I organized workshops and online seminars to teach these techniques and practices. Sharing these visions, predictions, and recommendations with the world has had a profound impact, not just on my life, but on the lives of thousands of people around the globe. The reactions were varied and often intense. At first, I faced a lot of skepticism and even ridicule. Many have labeled me as yet another prophet of the apocalypse or an attention-seeking charlatan. I received hostile messages, people accusing me of spreading fear and panic. There were times when I questioned whether I should continue sharing this information. However, as some predicted events began to materialize, attitudes began to change. I clearly remember the day when a small earthquake in the Indian Ocean, although not as catastrophic as the vision I saw, caught the world's attention. Many people started looking for me, wanting to know more about the other predictions. The growth of my YouTube channel was exponential. Suddenly I was getting thousands of views and comments on every video. People shared their own experiences, their concerns, and hopes. My inbox was constantly filled with messages from people seeking guidance and comfort. I started receiving invitations to appear on radio and television programs. At first, these were mainly programs aimed at a spiritualist audience, but soon the mainstream media also began to take an interest. I found myself discussing spiritual predictions and preparations on national talk shows, something I would never have imagined a few years earlier. Reactions were not limited to just interest or curiosity. Many people reported that angel messages had changed their lives in profound ways. I received letters from people who had given up stressful jobs to follow their passion, from families who had moved to the countryside to live more sustainably, from individuals who had found peace through the spiritual practices I shared. However, not all reactions were positive. Some people interpreted the messages in extreme ways, selling all their possessions and isolating themselves in bunkers. Others formed quasi-sectarian groups, seeing me as a kind of messiah, something I had always strongly discouraged. Authorities also began to pay attention. I was called to testify before government committees, questioned about the source of my information and the potential impact of my predictions on national security. These experiences were stressful, but they also gave me the opportunity to bring the angels' messages to an even wider audience. The impact extended beyond the borders of the United States. I began to receive invitations to speak at international conferences, to meet with spiritual and political leaders from other countries. The angels' messages were reaching a global audience, transcending cultural and linguistic barriers. One of the most surprising reactions came from the scientific community. Initially skeptical, some scientists began to be interested in the consciousness-raising techniques I taught. Preliminary studies have been initiated to investigate the effects of meditation and other spiritual practices on physical and mental health. With all this impact and attention, my life changed drastically. From an ordinary man leading a quiet life, I became a public figure, constantly under scrutiny. It was a huge, sometimes overwhelming responsibility. But whenever I felt overwhelmed, the angels would remind me of the greater purpose behind it all. Despite the challenges, the positive impact I saw on people's lives gave me the strength to continue. Each message of gratitude, each story of transformation, reaffirmed that I was on the right path. The reactions, positive and negative, were a constant reminder of the power of the messages I was sharing and the responsibility that came with that gift. As I look back and reflect on this entire extraordinary journey, I marvel at the path I have taken. From an ordinary man living a routine life in Los Angeles, I became a conduit for angelic messages that touched the lives of millions of people around the world. It's a transformation that still leaves me speechless sometimes. This entire experience taught me profound lessons about the nature of reality, about the purpose of life, and about the infinite potential that exists within each of us. I learned that the universe is much more vast, complex, and wonderful than we ever imagined, that there are levels of consciousness and reality beyond our everyday understanding, waiting to be explored. One of the most important lessons I received from the angels is that all the changes and challenges we face have a greater purpose. They showed me that we are going through a process of collective transformation, an evolution of human consciousness. The difficult events we see in the world, environmental crises, political conflicts, technological revolutions, are catalysts for this transformation. The angels taught me that the future is not written in stone. The visions and predictions I received are not inevitable destiny but possibilities. Our choices, individual and collective, shape the future we create. This understanding brings with it great responsibility, but also great power. I've learned that the key to navigating these changing times is to raise our vibration, cultivate love and compassion, and maintain faith in the fundamental goodness of the universe. Angels have always emphasized that love is the most powerful force there is, that when we act from love, we align ourselves with the creative force of the universe itself. Along this journey, I also learned a lot about myself. I discovered strengths I didn't know I had. I faced fears I didn't even know existed. I learned to trust my intuition, to listen to the voice of my soul. I discovered that true strength is not in never being afraid, but in continuing to move forward despite the fear. One of the most precious lessons I have received is about the interconnectedness of all things. The angels showed me that we are not separate from each other, nor from the world around us. We are all part of a great web of life, each thought and action affecting the whole. This understanding brings with it a deep sense of responsibility, but also of belonging. Looking to the future, I feel a mixture of hope and apprehension. The challenges we face as a species are enormous, but so is our potential. The angels showed me a future of incredible possibilities, a future of peace, harmony, and expanding consciousness. But they also showed me that this future is not guaranteed. It's up to us to create it through our daily choices and actions. My mission now is to continue sharing the angels' messages, helping people prepare for the changes that are coming, and inspiring them to embrace their own divine potential. I know the road ahead will not be easy, but I am deeply grateful and honored to have received this calling. For those reading this, I want to leave a final message from the angels. You are more powerful than you know. Within each of you there is a spark of the divine, waiting to be awakened. No matter how dark times may seem, always remember that the light is always there, even if we can't see it. Keep the faith, cultivate love, and know that you are never alone on this journey. May we all find the courage to face the challenges ahead, the wisdom to make the right choices, and the love to guide us through times of change. The future is in our hands. Let's create it together, with compassion, courage, and hope. So what did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to be notified with each new video. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.